on the regionals Reddit thread. But I feel like it's so odd. Let's talk about it in a second. In top left of hard lead, it is Shopify Rebellion's Byun. Bottom right, we do have Firefly, who I believe is on a team, but he just doesn't have his clan on. I don't know how to quickly check that. Firefly, look at Wikipedia. Right. Platinum Heroes. Thank you very much, Wikipedia. So, TvP here. Firefly has been kicking butt. He looked very strong versus Oliveira. Well, stronger than you expected. End result was a 4-1, but regardless, I think Firefly could have won a couple more games. And he defeated Gumi how to get here. So, he is looking good versus Terran, I suppose, surprisingly. Let's see if Byun's going to get shocked and awed by Firefly's playstyle. But anyway, so this guy writes that too much ZombieGrub in the upper bracket, lower bracket grand finals, and probably not enough in the early stages. Don't know how ESL managed to make the commentary so stale after doing a great job with rotating the casters so well at Katowice. I feel like, and I made the comment, good lord, just say you don't like me. Because it feels like such a weird comment. It has like an air of niceness to it, you know. It's, you know, like, well, you know, too much there, but then not enough over there, so, you know, fair. But considering that we usually have the same casters do so much work all the time, whether it's weekend events that are offline or online weekend events like a TSL or like Gamers 8, Gamers Without Borders, or previous year's regionals having some casters on, including myself, for like 12 days out of the entire regional. The time that I get 3 days total and 2 of them are back-to-back on the finals is too much. I think you just don't like me. And I don't think it was stale either. I don't think there is any indication that I was like, ugh, I've cast 6 StarCraft best of 3s already. I gotta do it again tomorrow. Ugh. I really don't think it was stale. Jeez. Anyway. So I let him know. Got my little keyboard, did my keyboard warrior thing. What's happening in this game? Firefly getting some scouting done. Sees that it is the command center on the high ground. So he even saw the exact time of it too. So that's pretty much all the intel you really need. The Adept actually evacuating. That's the best case scenario for our Protoss player here. I was gonna say our last Protoss player, but I don't think that's true. Max Pax is waiting at the winner of Skills Dark, so we still have 2 more Protosses. It's actually Protoss heavy. Hello? We have 1 Terran left and 1 Zerg left. Hello? I thought this race was underpowered. Anyway. So we have a medevac drop coming out from Byun because he freaking loves medevac drops. Any matchup, anywhere, anytime. Twilight Council after a Phoenix, actually. So often you'll see that first Stargate unit in Twilight Council. Did I say that correctly? First, so often you see the Twilight Council after the first Stargate unit, which is an Oracle. I feel like it said something without really thinking. But no, it's a Phoenix into Blink. That's, I guess that's just Firefly's thing. I didn't watch the games that he was playing too intently because I was either trying to still be asleep or I was 5 in the morning waking up. But if that's what he was doing the entire of his regionals, it's questionable. I don't know if the casters figured out why he was doing it, but it is very odd. The Phoenix doesn't have, a lone Phoenix, I should say, doesn't have nearly as much potential as an Oracle does in this matchup. You could argue versus a Zerg, it can kill Overlords, but I mean, Revelation, Stasis Trap is already so much more helpful against any Terran push, but yeah, I think it's specifically against this one. And if the Phoenix wants to scout, it's even more likely to suicide, I would say. But all right. I mean, I don't think Phoenix was necessarily the problem here. That's mostly what I spent the game talking about, but Byun does his tank push. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, wipes his hands of game 1 versus Firefly. You know what I'm gonna do to that guy on Reddit? You know what else I'm gonna do? You know what else I'm gonna do? I'm gonna downvote him. They have power. Unlimited cosmic power. In the bottom right, quickly up 1-0, he is Byun. In top left, it is Firefly. Tied for best caster in my book. Cheers. Thank you very much. I also have learned that the ESL Archives YouTube channel has been hacked while perusing this particular thread. So that's pretty funny. That's pretty good. I don't know who said it, what, but I love your casting. Thanks, guys. I assume, you know, if you're coming to this channel, you do. That's always nice to hear. Baby, I know it. ESL Archives channel has been terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. I think that was after the hacker spammed a bunch of crypto. The dollars! ESL is gonna lose out now because they lose their Archives YouTube channel. Shit! I'm gonna be paid in hay pennies now. God damn. I legitimately don't know how much money they would make off of that YouTube channel. Some of the videos actually, like obviously anytime there's the big names, Cyril, Maru, Scarlet. I think even Need was a pretty big name for a while. Maxbox. Beyond, yeah, there's big names, and depending on when they match up against each other. I know that there's been StarCraft YouTube videos, 100K plus, 200, 300, actually. But a lot of the videos are around more like 1.1K or something. So if I'm gonna extrapolate off my own YouTube channel for a second here, it's like it's $30 a month, maybe $50. Probably like $200 a month off that channel. I don't know. Anyway, the factory expand is underway. Firefly, once again, getting close enough, although not in the base of the probe, or close enough to see the timing. Technically, there is still a question here of whether or not it's going to be a full-on 1-1-1, but it's very unlikely in professional TvP, so you do just assume it's a factory expand. And then you weren't quite sure if these are going to be Marines or Reapers, but after a certain amount of time, since Marines produce faster than Reapers do, you can figure out that they are indeed Reapers. And it looks like Firefly might have actually mistimed their return trip probe, because I'm pretty sure he figured out that it was Reapers, but then was trying to return when the Reapers had already left the base. And I'm thinking, because I really do believe that you can tell if it's a Reaper or Marine based on the amount of time that has passed and nothing has shown up yet. Anyway, if that was his plan to get back in, he might have only been trying to get back in to really see the command center anyway. And he did that, so that's, you know, the probe did its job. Getting into the main base and seeing if there's a second barracks versus the starport, you know, would have been grand, but not usually going to happen. So Firefly really has the knowledge, but he did in the last game too, of the very start of the build. What he was missing was the knowledge of the attack, of tanks right in front of his face, blasting it away, blasting it into chunks. He totally missed that. The Phoenix did one little scout, and then it never did it again, and then it was like, oh shit, there's tanks, guys, lol. This time around, Firefly not going for a Stargate opener, but rather into the Twilight Council. 2 gates, looking to be a 3 Nexus build. Byun, I was gonna say, could be empowered by that last game and try and do another tank attack, but I just don't think Oceanborn's really the greatest for it. Bunker's actually coming through here. He doesn't quite know if his opponent's gonna go for a 4-gate or not after all. All he saw was a Twilight Council. We're trying to get us to brigade him. No. I forgot that was a thing. I always forget that you have the power of upvoting and downvoting. I don't know how many times I've seen a cute cat gif and been like, yay, and then just not upvoted. How dare I? Or I've been like, ah, and then not downvoted just because I forget. Oh, that's a dead medevac. Very well timed there from Firefly, who I think had to put at least one more chrono then. With Link to be done at 4:30. I think Byun was actually hoping that Link wouldn't quite be done. And obviously the Stalkers wouldn't quite be in such a good position, but he was wrong. Water Mine drop pretty much ineffective. 2 probes go down. The entirety of the drop killed. 2 Reapers and a Hellion scout out the Nexus, and I think they helped get one of those 2 probes. Oh, yeah, one apiece to the Reaper, so it was the probes moving over to get the Nexus down. And then the pylon as well. So total of 3 probes killed. Not by the Water Mine drop. And at this point, obviously, Byun knows it's not a 4-gate. Sorry, it's not a 4-gate. But no reason to really salvage the bunker quite yet, as he is not prepared to go. This is interesting. Byun, who, pretty quickly determined that was a 3rd Nexus on a 4-gate, is going to stick to the tech options right here. And by that, I mean the 2nd tank. Usually you get that, but then the Banshee, which I guess can be slipped into anyone, any build, and actually is safer, I guess, to do against someone who's not 4-gating. Especially because it's cloakless. Oh, it is cloak. Oh. Well, maybe he already started a Banshee in cloak and then was like, well, I'm already invested. That's going to be surprisingly annoying. I don't think Firefly will be expecting this. His observers have been back at home, so no, he has not gotten any scouting on the opposite side of the map. So, well, the observers are home, so I mean, there's a chance this works out perfectly, actually. Is he anticipating this, or just default setting this up? Because if that's the case, good on him. I would say you don't often see the Banshee. It is a choice that Terrans are making, sure, but it's not super frequent. So then I guess kind of similar argument to the bunker. There wasn't much else to be doing. Well, that's not really true. That's kind of the issue with a Blink opener, is that generally, if you do just stay at home and are like, well, I can deal with any drops, and you have literally nothing on the side of the map, not even an observer, much less the Stalkers in position to poke and prod and buy time, you usually are opening yourself up to a bigger vulnerability. Tanks arriving on your front door. But in this case, it was totally fine. Even though he did not know exactly when or if, I suppose, Byun was moving out in the front lines, Byun wasn't. So, Stalker's perfectly positioned now on the front lines, looking to buy that time, do that damage. Missed micro, however, a little awkward. And I guess distract as well, as the Warp Prism is also set up. Charge lots inside, looking to do some damage to the SCV line. Quick response from Byun, who did not actually move out anyway. It's usually more so the timing that the Protoss is looking for. But the threat's there. The threat is there. There's also a bit of a scout from Byun, I suppose, theoretically. I think the Banshee was mostly the scout, though. Saw the lack of gases in the natural. Knew that it was going to be charge lot heavy, but is not aware of how fast the potential transition is on the way. How fast those gases actually did eventually come down. It's still only 4, not 6. But we are adding on some of that splash. Not in the form of Colossus, but in the form of that Storm. Byun's almost ready to go for the attack. He's got +1 armor. He's got all of his bio upgrades. He's got 3 tanks and an SCV pool. SCV pool is actually not that great against Storm, but only if Storm is actually done, and that is currently the problem. 2 base build from Byun, 5 racks, 2 bases. It was going to be committed, and the SCV just made it all in. It is going to be attacking before Storm is done. 3 High Templars are waiting for that upgrade to actually finish. This is an awkward engagement. SCVs have to be drilled through, actually, to get on the front lines as they should, but they do. And the tankiness of the bio underneath those medevacs was good enough to keep most of them alive anyway. What am I going to pop off? No, in fact, it's going to choose to unburrow them, but the tanks actually get the fire as the Zealots are pulled back into the shield battery overcharge and hopefully into the Storm, which actually does hit. Lots of SCVs already down here, hardly any more to provide fodder. It's all about the Storm anyway. I mean, the charge lots want to come in on the backside. They want to take out the tanks from the equation. They want to get us around on the bio. It's a lot about the Storm. Trying to actually burst through someone who has Storm is so damn difficult to do. And the Storm is looking for the heart of the army, getting 2 pretty good Storms. That second one especially. The tanks are demolished, and all that's left over is bio. 2 medevacs with some energy left over, but now we got some micro also being displayed right now. Byun trying to take down the rest of the Protoss army, will not be able to do so. 1 Archon taken like a beast, and Firefly will win game number 2. Not enough time for that Storm. That's really the critical point there. And Storm is just so effective against SCV pools because it's not a targetable attack. Colossus waste shots on SCVs. You don't necessarily waste a storm on SCVs. I mean, if you literally only storm the SCVs, then I guess that can be a waste. But you still, like, if everything is combined together in a speedy attack that really is time dependent, you got to get going with the SCV pull, and you're trying to force yourself through storm, everything gets hit. Everything. Now the series is tied up in the top left of Site Delta. It is Byun. On the bottom right, we do have Firefly. Site Delta. Pattern has already been set in the mere 2 hours, not even, hour and a half that I've been casting. The pattern has been set. Byun likes to tank push on this map. He did it versus Geralt. He did it versus Clem. Both were effective. Particularly the one versus Geralt, Protoss player. I would not be at all shocked to see him do it versus Firefly. Especially because the first game was also a tank push, and that was a very easy game. Clearly not Firefly's best game, as he then went on to win game 2, so it's competitive best of 3 overall, but that first game was not competitive. And it really is the trick to a lot of the tank pushes. I was really happy when Roddy kind of dug in a little bit to the whiners of the tank pushes. You know, Roddy hardly ever won to really harshly make fun, I suppose. That's my job. But he did kind of mention, like he doesn't like when people complain about these tank pushes and how hard they're to deal with, because, they're difficult, but there's definitely ways to do it. And when they see Protoss just flop over and die, there's usually a reason, and that reason is that they usually weren't active enough on the map. So I was really happy when he said that, because, people trust him when they trust me. But seriously, that is usually the problem. One of the easier examples of that to really point to, I would say, is Estrella's performance in the GSL, where obviously a lot of shedders were just like, lol, foreigners, lol. Estrella's great. You could definitely contend in GSL on a different day. But he really wasn't doing particularly good jobs at scouting and being on the map. So we got tank push a couple times by his Terran opponents, and it looked unbeatable because he was already sieged up in his natural by the time he started doing anything. And then, yeah, the Terran tank pushes do look unbeatable when that happens. It's one of the easier games you're going to get. But if you actually are active on the map, especially considering what type of build you chose, then things can get a lot easier. I'm talking a lot about something that's not guaranteed to happen, I suppose. Byun once again going for the high ground factory expand, though, and Site Delta is setting up the same exact build so far. Reaper Marine Cyclone. Firefly's probe went way downtown to hide itself. Sure. Apollo. Just turned up my volume. The probe is going to scout the command center. Going to scout the Cyclone. Yeah. Well, that's all it's going to get. That's all you would really necessarily expect. 3 gateways on the way for Firefly. Now, that's very important, not because of the potential half-half choice of being aggressive or defensive, but I think in this case, mostly because it will help him defensively. If he actually determines that this is going to be a tank push, which Byun seems to like on this map, Firefly might have already picked up on that, then consistently warping in Stalkers will give him enough to deal with this. Also, probably consistently chronoing his blink to have that as fast as possible. He might already be reading into what Byun does, because they probably play on ladder, although maybe barcodes. They've definitely played before. I'm not checking their league lag, but they probably have. And it's probably just popular amongst TvP right now as well. Not necessarily a Byun special. So Geralt might have momentarily forgotten, or just thought it was something different, or just isn't normal for him. Firefly really does seem to be almost predicting this, if he uses his 3 gateways to actually warp in. And he still might mess up his macro with supply block right there. It was supposed to be his 3rd base pylon, so that does happen to Protosses. No further scout. Byun is opting for that tank push. We knew it would happen. Here it comes. The question is, has Firefly built up enough of an army? He's got Blink. He's got Stalkers. He's got the Scout. And he should get those stalkers on the front lines most ASAPly. This actually would be probably a very good idea considering the last game for Byun, as Firefly played defensively with those stalkers. The really key difference was that Firefly actually got something out on the map to scouts. And even though he maybe could have been even faster to stalling this out if his stalkers were immediately on the front lines, the fact that they are here, forcing the tanks to siege up in the midway point, is already so much better. In the previous iterations of this tank push, so much better. And the shield battery in the natural, almost late, but because he was able to stall this out, now totally well-timed. Third base could be under probe! Jesus Christ, the criminy! Hi! Jeff, I did not expect that! Third base could be under pressure, is what I was trying to say. And then Firefly blinked forward to take out a tank and actually didn't lose too much. In fact, did he lose anything? He lost a stalker so far. So definitely worth taking out that tank. It's a bit flabbergasted, though. Another tank might go down. Not enough to one-shot. Very unfortunate. Ideally, that was one-shot tank, one-shot liberator, one-shot reinforcing tank. We're still not at the one-shot potential, but the two-shot will do it, and he'll be able to escape with a decent amount of stalkers. And with the tanks gone, there's not as much of a push, really. That's the majority of the push. Liberator also slightly intercepted here. 8 stalkers have gone down, but Firefly can now say that he has handled this push, and it's not all in. All of your chips are not on the poker table right now for Byun, but a lot of them are. Almost that situation in which a more experienced poker player is kind of laughing at you and saying, you might as well have all in, like, what are you doing? It's kind of like that. Because Byun didn't kill any Nexus. He didn't kill any probes, but he did, well, he just did. He killed 5 probes. But he also, you know, he stopped Firefly from making probes. But the real problem is that he doesn't have a lot of follow-up. So it's like, yeah, I stopped him from making probes. Like, well, what stops him from chronoing triple probes now? Not necessarily a lot, which is exactly what Firefly is doing. Knowing that he's got the opportunity, he's got the map control, the Terran army is being entirely slapped back into the natural, and you know with a push like that stim, combat shields has been delayed, upgrades have been delayed, medevacs have been delayed. Firefly has a lot more room to grow in the next minute and a half than Byun does. Now, Byun is going to take a minute and a half to get all of his upgrades, and in that minute and a half, he'll probably build up a decently sized army, and oh, this is a nice find right there, Firefly. Big mistake. That Warp Prism should have been microed better. Thought it was safe on the outskirts of the base. Absolutely not. That's a bummer, but I still actually don't know if that makes up for Byun's deficit of technology. What I was trying to say is that Byun will have a feisty army, and he might still be able to win this game with the next push, with the stim, combat shields, +1, whatever bio he's been able to afford. But Firefly, theoretically, with the vision that he has, the map control that he has, and the choices that he can make, the risks that aren't really risks anymore that he could take, should afford him a lot of potential to win this game and this series. Then he did just mess it up with the Warp Prism. I'm glad that he remade it. I think the Warp Prism power is good. It's powerful. It's, I think, a key part of the next 2 minutes. Again, maybe he doesn't strictly need the Warp Prism. If he just warps in a bunch of charge lots and stalkers and controls Byun's next push, then he may still win. But the Warp Prism threat is so good. The Warp Prism being able to warp in Zealots and force a true all-in or come back home and micro like you saw in the last game, that's huge. And that first Warp Prism was even supposed to add in little bits of damage before Stalkers. That first Warp Prism that died, I would say, could even easily have gotten 5 SCVs killed, just with micro, because Stim wouldn't be done. Instead, you lost 4 Stalkers and a Warp Prism, and you did no further damage to your opponent. But here comes the damage now. It's already an SCV pool, so it's really confirming the all-in. Firefly does not have any AoE, and that is the current problem. It's not one that he can't overcome, but he needs a hell of a lot of units to do so. Zealots abound, Sentry, the Guardian Shield, also very important. And ideally a shield battery, but he's not going to have one. That shield battery overcharge could easily be target fired. In fact, that is exactly what's going to happen. The SCVs body block for the Zealots initially, but the Zealots do get on top of the tanks, do get on top of the Marines, and Byun's all-in here is not going to work at all. That it didn't work. I actually thought that had a little bit more potential. It absolutely didn't. Firefly, as soon as he got to saturated minerals on 3 bases and 3 gas, he was like, Zealots, 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 and that's exactly what he should have been doing. That Warp Prism loss is not at all consequence. And Byun is going to lose the semifinals here against Firefly, who's really kicking butt in this matchup. Should be extremely proud of his development here as he heads into the finals after this. GG's, Firefly. Representing the Asia region, because Korea's Korea and Asia's Asia, apparently. Nicely done.